Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Labor opposes this bill not because we're against more efficient consenting processes, not because we're against reforming the regulatory framework to encourage economic development, but, Mr Speaker, we oppose this bill because it seeks to do those things at the expense of the environment and at the expense of the community. And that is why we are opposed to this bill. It takes away the right of communities to have a say, and it weakens environmental standards. That is the bottom line, Mr Speaker. I want to focus my comments on two aspects of this bill that I think illustrate the government's particularly tortured relationship with Auckland. And I'm going to talk about the unitary plan, Auckland unitary plan provisions, and the tree protection provisions in this bill, because both of those sections in the bill show what a conflicted and difficult relationship the National Party has with Auckland, and this tendency that it has that we've seen every year since John Key became the Prime Minister, and that is to chip away at the powers and the freedoms of local government and hand over those powers to central government. This is a centralising, power-hungry National Party government. So the Auckland Unitary Plan, in fact, Labor supports the provisions in this bill that fast-track the Auckland Unitary Plan. And I want to just say briefly, Mr Speaker, that what a significant development the draft unitary plan is in Auckland. It is the first time our country's biggest city has ever had a comprehensive public debate about the future shape of the city. It's the first time it's happened. It's because we have a fine Labor Mayor, Len Brown, in office, providing the kind of leadership that this National Party, it wouldn't even occur to them. It wouldn't even occur to them to promote the kind of progressive, forward-looking agenda like funding the city rail link, for example, or supporting a quality compact city. These are the things, sir, that Auckland Council has provided strong leadership on and have had the courage to open up a process that is not without its flaws, and there are plenty of critics, but, sir, it is at least a process where people are having a chance to have a say about the future of their city. And it's good that in this bill there is a provision to fast-track the unitary plan. Now, it put the National Party in an interesting position, Mr Speaker, because they're not averse on that side of the House to the odd bit of fast-tracking legislation. In fact, they've got strong tendencies in that direction. A bit of the old streamlining here, a bit of fast-tracking there. So, but Labor agreed, sir, with Auckland Council's request for fast-tracking the unitary plan because we didn't believe that it was tenable for the new unitary plan, with all the rezoning that's involved, a raft of measures to promote housing affordability. It is simply not tenable to expect Aucklanders to wait the 7 or 8 years that it could have taken for the plan to go through the RMA processes and get bedded down. So we supported in principle the fast tracking. As I said, National's not averse to a bit of fast tracking, but in this case they found themselves very conflicted. And that is, the reason for that, sir, is that they have a problem with Len Brown. They have a problem with the fact that their guy lost the mayoralty in 2010. They don't like that. They've never got over it. And their mission in life is to make life as difficult as possible for Mayor Len Brown and the Auckland Council. So they agreed to much of the request for a fast-tracked unitary plan, but they couldn't stomach two aspects of it, and they knocked back Auckland Council on these two elements, sir. Instead of allowing Auckland Council to appoint the members of the hearings panel, that will be a kind of one-stop shop decision-making forum for the unitary plan, the government has insisted on appointing and who inevitably will be their cronies to the Auckland Unitary Plan Hearings Panel. They couldn't bring themselves even to share joint responsibility with Auckland Council for appointing that panel. They had to seize control of Auckland's decision-making process by insisting on the Minister of Local Government and the Minister of Environment having exclusive power to appoint that panel. And that says a lot about this government and the fact that they don't trust Auckland Council and they don't trust Aucklanders. They prefer to make the decisions from their ministerial offices here in Wellington. They're not willing to allow Aucklanders and their democratically elected representatives to have responsibility to appoint the panel that will make the decisions about the future shape of Auckland City. And that, I think, is a sad reflection on this government. They also rejected Auckland Council's request that the unitary plan have legal weight from notification. The whole process of the drafting, the consultation, the amendments will be completed by about September this year, Mr. Speaker. The plan will then be notified. It will be put out to the public for the RMA appeal processes to commence. Under the law as it was prior to 2009, the plan would then have had legal weight. Now, that doesn't mean that the plan would be fully operational and that all decisions made would be made on the basis of that plan. It simply means that the plan would be taken into account. It would be considered by decision makers when they're ruling on consents and new developments and so on. But so it's not, I think, in light of that, in light of the fact that until 2009 the plan would have had legal weight from notification, that wasn't an unreasonable request by Auckland Council in those circumstances, if you accept the fact that there are urgent things like housing affordability that need to be dealt with, and the unitary plan offers a comprehensive package of measures to deal with the housing affordability crisis. So, having refused those two very reasonable requests from Len Brown and the Auckland Council, first, that Auckland Council be allowed to appoint the hearings panel. Second, that the unitary plan have legal weight from notification. Nick Smith then the Housing Minister found himself in a very interesting situation. The polls were clearly telling Stephen Joyce that housing affordability had become a red-hot political issue and the government was vulnerable in Auckland. Secondly, the overheating Auckland housing market was posing a threat to the overall economy because of the inflationary pressures it was generating. That advice was coming from Treasury and the Reserve Bank to the Minister of Finance. So Nick Smith is spurred into action, but his ability to actually make a difference, sir, is totally hamstrung by the fact that Amy Adams has refused to allow the Auckland plan to take legal effect from notification. So we then see this dance of the seven veils from Nick Smith in the following 2 months, rampaging around Auckland, accusing Len Brown of having killed the dreams of Aucklanders, threatening to legislate to override the RMA powers of the Auckland Council, all because the government had already decided the plan would not be given early legal effect. So the upshot, sir, is that Nick Smith is forced to bring this hastily cobbled together Housing Accords and Special Housing Areas Bill, which simply fast-tracks two elements of the Auckland Draft Unitary Plan. Streamlined consenting, and it brings in greenfields land sooner than otherwise would be the case. So what a ridiculous, wild goose chase Amy Adams and Nick Smith have led Aucklanders on for the last few months. This, sir, is just the latest bit of evidence of National's tortured relationship with Auckland. They created a super city that they couldn't easily kick around, and for the last 3 years they've been paying the price of that. And it's, to be quite honest, sir, it is a pain for Aucklanders to have to put up with, and the sooner the National Party gets over itself in relation to Auckland, the better. I want to make brief mention, sir, of the tree protection provisions, which Nick Smith tried to extinguish in 2009. It was one of the first debates, actually, I ever took part in this House, and David Cunliffe and I took the fight to the government on behalf of West Aucklanders who wanted to retain the right, Mr. Speaker, to protect the Waitakere Ranges and to protect trees. In fact, all Aucklanders do appreciate the social, environmental and cultural amenity value of our urban forest. There are huge environmental reasons to protect the urban forest, particularly in Waitakere. High rainfall, high erosion environment where trees make a critical difference. The effect of this bill is to make it virtually impossible, Mr Speaker, for councils to cost efficiently protect the urban forest in Auckland. That's the point of it, and the National Party should take responsibility for that.
Mr Speaker.
Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr.